Hey guys, in today's video I will be doing a major tropical update talking about both Tropical Storm Gonzalo, Tropical Depression 8, and actually real quick in the beginning here I'll talk about Hurricane Douglas, which has been acting insane lately. As of this most recent advisory or so, Hurricane Douglas is at 120 miles per hour and its pressure is at 964 millibars, and it's moving west-northwest at 20 miles per hour. And my forecast for how strong Douglas would get in the end was 120 miles per hour. Well, I was right on one. I was kind of right. It did get to 120 miles per hour, though I don't think it's done really. It's done strengthening yet, because as you can see, it will stay at major hurricane status up until around like 2 p.m. tomorrow. So that's still a long time for it to continue to try and strengthen or do whatever it wants to do, really. And even as it starts to head more towards Hawaii, it could hit the Big Island or Maui as a weak Category 1 hurricane, potentially. So that's something we're going to have to watch out for Douglas. So that was really fascinating. Now, Gonzalo, as of the 11 a.m. advisory, is still at 65 miles per hour. Its pressure is at 997 millibars, and it is moving due west at 14 miles per hour. And the NHC is now saying that it won't become a hurricane now until 8 a.m. tomorrow. We'll have to see about that. I do understand where they're coming from. Gonzalo is kind of struggling a bit now just because of the dry air now is actually trying to, is infiltrating the system and trying to break it up, and we'll see how that goes. Though there are hurricane watches in effect now for Barbados and some of the central southern Leeward Islands, and they are forecasting it to be a hurricane as it's moving through the Leeward Islands and into the very western parts of the Caribbean before starting to weaken because of the shear back down to a tropical storm. And we'll see if it can survive the central and western parts of the Caribbean, see if it can try to hold itself together as best as possible before as it's heading more towards the eastern Caribbean. I meant the shears in the eastern and central Caribbean, and that's what's gonna make it become a tropical storm as it heads more towards the western Caribbean. And the western Caribbean looks like it has a much better atmosphere and conditions for it to, if it does hold itself together, to try to redevelop, re-strengthen. And I do think, but from that point, it will go into the Gulf. So we'll have to. Honestly, I think we'll have to continue to keep our eyes out for Gonzalo for the next another week or so, because I don't really think it's fully done yet. I don't think it will fully dissipate or be gone fully, just because it's going to be sheared apart potentially in the eastern and central Caribbean. I think its remnants will still stick around and potentially even redevelop and re-strengthen. So that's Gonzalo. And then we have Tropical Depression 8 here in the central, northern, and western Gulf areas. And the NHC is predicting it's a tropical depression right now with winds at 35 miles per hour, and it's moving to the west-northwest at 9 miles per hour. And the NHC is predicting it to become a tropical storm potentially by early tomorrow morning. We'll see what happens with it. It does seem reasonable, I do think. I'm predicting this system to peak out at around 45 miles per hour. NHC, the Weather Channel, are predicting it to peak out around 40 miles per hour. So it's a very close matter of just 5 miles per hour difference. So we'll see how that goes. But there are tropical storm watches in effect for really all of coastal Texas from Houston down to, to Brownsville, Texas down here. So that is something we should keep our eyes out for still. The rainfall does look quite heavy, honestly, up towards maybe 4 to 6 inches, maybe some isolated spots of getting up towards 6, 7 inches of rainfall around the coastal Texas area along the Gulf or even farther inland and towards the border of Texas and Mexico. So it will be a pretty decent rainmaker, nonetheless, even if it doesn't get named. So that's really still something people living in these areas should really watch out for and prepare for, especially there because there is that chance of flash flooding potential. You can see the flash flooding potential is at a slight risk, a 10% chance slight risk for coastal Louisiana and coastal Texas. And then a marginal risk getting up towards more central Louisiana and south central Texas. So still watch out for potential flash flooding, especially if you live in around Houston, Galveston. So really just those areas, in those general areas, please watch out for some flash flooding because of the rainfall. So now let's look at tropical tidbits, and I'll show you how each storm is looking. Gonzalo, as I was saying, the dry air is really screwing the system up. So we gotta really see how it tries. We'll see if it can try and battle it again and win out maybe once again. But you can see a lot of the convection has died out from the system, and most of the convection is really displaced down to its southern parts and to its very western parts. There's really nothing around the actual center really, or in the northern parts of the system. So you can see the dry air is actually, I think it is infiltrating from in here and really tearing out all the convection and really all those clouds in this part of the system. So we'll see, honestly, if it can try to sustain itself or become any stronger, or be able to fight off the dry air there. The intensity model guidance, this new run of the intensity model guidance, the 12Z, all the models do take it into hurricane status for the majority. There's only a few that really don't, so, but really just disregard those. That's most likely not going to happen. Now, of course, there is this one model which is the Cody model. Is that whatever this model is? It's going crazy. It thinks it's really going to intensify, go under some rapid intensification, become potentially a weak Category 4 hurricane, which would be incredible. I don't think that'll really happen, but that's very interesting. But again, the majority of the models, which doesn't make sense, make it Category 1, maybe even a weak Category 2, if it really tries to strengthen realistically to the most realistic point before it starts to interact with that shear in the Eastern and Central Caribbean and start weakening again. So that's very interesting. The models do agree that it will head into the Caribbean and then potentially even into the Gulf. So the system could be a threat to, again, around like Texas, Louisiana, again, like Tropical Depression 8 is going to be a threat to those areas as well. Or, I mean, honestly, really, it looks like just anyone who lives along the Gulf Coast, just keep your eyes out, honestly, for the system. But don't fully worry about it just yet, especially since we're really probably like a week or more away from the system reaching those areas. The CMC generally also agrees with the GFS models and shows it going into the Caribbean. So that's a look at Gonzalo. Now, Tropical Depression 8, on the other hand, does look a lot healthier. So that is a good thing about this system. You can see the convection is generally really blowing up and really getting its act together a good bit. And it looks like it is continuing to try and strengthen, so that is a good thing. God, I want to stay on here and let it load, but it's taking a long time to really load. Sorry about this, guys. But, yeah, I mean, as you can see in general, the system is really trying to strengthen it a lot. You can see it's staying very consistent with a lot of its convection all throughout this run. If we just play it all the way through, you can see the convection stays very consistent and continues to blow up with a lot of tall and tall clouds and lots of convection. So it's looking pretty good, honestly. The majority of the models for the intensity guidance, gotta let it load. Sorry about this, guys. Man, my computer is really acting up all of a sudden. Here, let's go back to current storms. Let's try to. Maybe I have to go back in. Well, that's a problem. See if I can go onto Google Chrome and show you guys it. Will it load? Yes. Okay. Thank you. Okay, good. So yeah, as I was saying, here's Tropical Depression 8. It is looking very healthy, looking very good. The intensity models generally agree on it becoming a tropical storm. There is this one model that does take into Category 1 status, which I don't think will honestly happen. I think it will become generally a weak to maybe slightly moderate tropical storm. I'm predicting that this system will peak at around 45 miles per hour, so it's not a terribly strong system at all, but still it will be bringing a lot of rain to Texas, so it will still be pretty impactful in any case. So you can see the majority of the models are predicting it to be anywhere between really like 35 and 45 knots, and that I generally agree with that. I do generally agree with that. And you can see the models. GFS and CMC are generally agreeing that it will make landfall somewhere in Texas. And then here's Hurricane Douglas. We'll look at how Douglas looks. And again, Douglas is looking really amazing for a hurricane, for a Category 3 hurricane. Does look very healthy. You can see that eye is beautiful, especially for a kind of weaker Category 3 hurricane, but still a powerful system. It really went under rapid intensification yesterday. I actually saw it starting to go under rapid intensification. I could really tell it was really forming in an eye, and you could really tell the eye was there as it was really strengthening. It went from being a 75 mile per hour Category 1 hurricane to a 120 mile per hour Category 3 hurricane pretty much overnight, so that was incredible stuff right there. But yeah, you can see the eye is beautiful. The convection continues to be generally very consistent and continues to blow up around the eye. So it's really not having any problems really with its strength or anything in general. Let's now look at, here we go. Here's the intensity model guidance. Majority of them seem to agree that it will stay generally consistent, and maybe strengthen a little bit more to maybe where it's gets to maybe a strong Category 3, just barely a Category 4, but generally it looks like it will be like 120, 125 mile per hour Category 3 for its peak, and then it will start to really weaken as it heads towards Hawaii, and will probably make landfall as a very weak hurricane, Category 1 hurricane in Hawaii, and then will continue to weaken from there, become a tropical storm, and then dissipate after some time. But let's look at the models. Let's look at what the models are showing. We'll look at the GFS model. Let's real quick just to kind of get it out of the way. I should do Central Pacific, yeah. All right, here we go. You can see there's Hawaii there, and you can see there's Douglas barreling in. And here, I'll zoom this in for you guys so you can see it better. There's Douglas, and Douglas, you can see Douglas gets pretty strong. It's pretty strong right now, but it looks like, yeah, the GFS does show it weakening a good bit as it's heading over Hawaii, and then it will really fall apart after it goes through Hawaii and moves out of Hawaii. So that's what the GFS is showing for the precipitation for Douglas. And just real quick just really looking at Douglas. The last thing we'll look at Douglas for is the rainfall for Hawaii. And it looks like Hawaii could expect decently heavy rainfall. A lot of the areas will expect anywhere from between 1/2 inch to 2 inches of rain, getting into the purples, 2 to 6 inches of rain, and then some areas could see 6, 7, 8 inches of rainfall. So there is a lot of rain coming for Hawaii. They should really watch out, honestly. Now let's look at the Western Atlantic. Oh, wait, hold on. Sorry, MSLP and precip, here we go. Okay, and then, oh wait, I gotta bring this back. Whoops. All right, so Gonzalo is like right off screen there. As I move it forward, there's Gonzalo. Well, let me zoom this out for you guys so you can see it. There's Gonzalo right there. You can see it generally holds its strength, honestly. It maybe strengthens even a little more, gets down to around 990 millibars, and as it's crossing the islands, it does seem to become a much weaker, a good bit weaker system, maybe a strong tropical storm to weak Category 1 hurricane as it's crossing the islands, and then as it continues into the Caribbean, the GFS really thinks that the shear is going to really tear it apart, and it'll just become a lot of heavier rain showers and storms. It won't really redevelop or re-intensify. But of course, these much smaller systems, these smaller tropical systems, are much harder to forecast for these models. So, we'll just have to see what happens, honestly, because these models will most likely be somewhat wrong with it, somewhat incorrect with the way they're showing it. The CMC, I don't know what's wrong with the CMC, if you guys can see that. The CMC is really showing it just so weak and like nothing. I don't understand what the CMC is doing. I'll just show you guys what the Euro is showing for the system. You can see the Euro is really, it's weird. The Euro is really underplaying the system a lot. It's not exactly showing it. Oh wait, never mind. What am I saying? Hold on, let's go to the Tropical Atlantic. Okay. Yeah, so there's Gonzalo right there, and the Euro is showing a very interesting track, actually. It's showing it crossing Hispaniola and going north of Hispaniola and Cuba and going more towards the Bahamas. So, that is, that might be something we may have to watch, see if actually Gonzalo might kind of trick us a bit and go north of Puerto Rico and Hispaniola and not stay within the Caribbean. And I don't know. We'll have to see how that goes. That's very interesting. So there's a look at Gonzalo. Now let's go to the. Where should we go? Let's go to the. Hold on. Let's go to the Western Atlantic, and I'll show you what the GFS is showing for what is currently Tropical Depression 8. It's Tropical Depression 8 now, what am I saying? The GFS really isn't showing it all that strong at all. Here, I'll zoom this in for you guys. There's Tropical Depression 8, 1,008 millibars, I believe that says, for around 8 a.m. on Friday, and then it makes landfall. The GFS doesn't really show a consistent kind of center of low pressure for the system, so that is a sign that it will stay generally very weak. So, and that is honestly kind of expected. It doesn't seem like it will really get all that strong at all. So again, that's look at the forecast models for Gonzalo. So Tropical Depression 8, just show you what the GFS model is showing for it. The CMC, oh wow, the CMC is quite bullish. It's very interesting. Let's zoom this in, and let's show you what the CMC is showing. Showing 1,008, 1,007 millibars, and kind of has it pretty well wrapped around as it makes landfall in Texas. Does show it kind of as a more moderate to strong tropical storm, it seems. Making landfall, I believe, around Corpus Christi, Texas. I believe that's where Corpus Christi is. And bringing lots of heavy rain to those areas. Let me zoom this out again just so I can... Oh my god, what am I doing? I'm a mess today. Alright, so here's the rainfall that the CMC is showing, and you can see very impressive amounts of rainfall. You can see generally most areas will really generally getting above 2 inches of rainfall, and then a lot of areas as well getting above 5-6 inches of rainfall. Even some areas could be seeing close to a foot of rainfall, honestly, according to the CMC, which is very, very surprising. The European model, I can't show you the rainfall in the European, but I can show you the kind of spin for the system. And you can see there's the spin for Tropical Depression 8, and the Euro does actually show some decent spin and maybe a kind of more well-defined center for Tropical Depression 8 as it's making landfall in Texas. Then it'll fall apart after that point, of course. So, you know, it's very interesting stuff there. And then finally, we'll look at the Wikipedia page for the 2020 Atlantic hurricane season. And I'll zoom in here so I can read this to you guys. It says, currently active Gonzalo is threatening the southern Windward Islands and Barbados. And Tropical Depression 8 is also threatening Texas. So, yeah, again, that's really what I've just been going over and saying all just now. As of right now, we have a total of 7 total storms and a total of 8 total depressions. And we'll see if Tropical Depression 8 does become a named storm. In that case, we will have 8 total storms, and we will be 1 storm ahead and be beating 2005. Where's it saying that? Come on, show it to me. Oh my god. Did they remove it? They might have removed it, but they were saying on here earlier that this season is now tied with 2005 for having the most named storms before August 1st. So if we get Tropical Depression 8 to be named Hanna, we would be officially ahead of 2005 for total amount of named storms by this point before August 1st. But it does say that in July, Tropical Storms Edward, Faye, and Gonzalo became the earliest 5th, 6th, and 7th named storms, forming on July 4th, 9th, and 21st, respectively. So that's huge. And each of those beat the 2005 E, F, and G named storms. So we're kind of beating 2005 this year in a way. Of course, not to that extent, but honestly, at this point, I'm like, yay, we're actually beating 2005. Anyway, so that's pretty exciting. Of course, there's that hurricane watch for Barbados and St. Vincent and the... what does that say? St. Vincent, so you guys can see this as well. St. Vincent and the Grenadines, so those areas in the Windward Islands and Barbados are under hurricane watch for Gonzalo. And then Tropical Depression 8, there's a Tropical Storm Watch for the Texas areas from Port Mansfield to High Island. So that's very interesting. We'll see if Tropical Depression 8 does become a named storm. It will be named Hanna, becoming the earliest H-named storm on record, being the H-named storm of 2005, which I am currently blanking on. And it will be affecting Hispaniola, Cuba, Gulf Coast of the United States. So, yeah. It will most likely cause some amount of damage. Both Gonzalo and Tropical Depression 8 will most likely cause some amount of damage. And, again, I do expect them to potentially kill some people. Not that's not a good thing, of course, but that would be expected, especially with Tropical Depression 8 bringing a lot of heavy rainfall to Texas. with those flash flooding. Flash flooding kills a lot of people. Can kill a lot of people who are not expecting it because it comes in so suddenly. It happens so suddenly. So, you know, just got to be mindful of all of that. You know, that's it for today's video, guys. I really hope you enjoyed. Please like, comment, subscribe below, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.